බිස්කට් වේදිකාවට දැන් පැමිණි සීග්‍රගාමී රසේ මංචි පොටේටෝ ක්‍රැකර්. බිස්කට් වේදිකාවට දැන් පැමිණි සීග්‍රගාමී රසේ මංචි පොටේටෝ ක්‍රැකර්.
On satellite, on Freeview, on cable, on radio, on mobile, on the web and around the world. This is Other Derana 24/7.
First at 9. No easy change in Jaffna. IGP Pujitha Jayasundara says inculcated attitudes in the north over the last 3 decades will not be tolerated. Also making headlines tonight, won't give an inch. The president stresses no outright handover of land in Hambantota. What's the criteria? Former president questions whether evaluations were carried out before handing over Hambantota port project. Trade gap widens. Sri Lanka exports grow in May, but import expenditure jumps, pushing balance of trade further negative. Making headlines in news overseas, fired in under 2 weeks. White House Communications Director Anthony Scaramucci fired after 10 days in office. Good evening. I'm Indi Variamo at the First at 9. We begin with your news here at home. The Inspector General of Police, Pujitha Jayasundara, says all suspects connected to incidents in Jaffna will be arrested under the law without adhering to any personal agenda. He further cited that the public support is highly needed to succeed in the process.
The Inspector General made these remarks when he met civil organizations in the area at the Jaffna police station today.
Their attitude and their training and their lifestyle, where the youth have been used to, cannot be completely forgotten at once. Among the people and the police and the security forces, government officials, do we have the confidence, the reliability, faithfulness as we expected? So these are some of the main factors I noticed as reasons for this type of happening, especially in the north. In any case, this cannot be tolerated. But the best thing was public support. So this has to be practically actuated and it has to be a results oriented. There are various extremist groups and the people spreading a lot of rumors by giving a false definitions into these incidents. According to them, now the police are the failures. The law and institution is not there. Don't have proper control. The extremism and the terrorism, LTT terrorism has started like this. And same thing is coming again. So these things are being spreaded in the media by the extremist groups and the political groups. So we have to address that specific problem in a very specific way before the court to take the decision according to the evidences available. That is the democracy. So we are taking them one by one according to the law. There's no personal agenda. So the public has to support confidentially to get this mission a success.
President Maithripala Sirisena emphasizes that not even an inch of the land belonging to the Hambantota port will be given to any foreign nation or organization on freehold. The president made the remark addressing the celebration of the 38th anniversary of the Sri Lanka Ports Authority today.
The ceremony to mark the 30th anniversary of the Sri Lanka Ports Authority was held under the patronage of President Maithripala Sirisena at the East Container Terminal of the Colombo Harbour today.
1995.
My only regret is that the current government halted all action taken by the previous government to develop the East Container Terminal. If we had continued with those efforts, then we could have had a working container terminal by now. Back then, the tradition was to unload all vehicles at the Colombo harbour. After a political decision, all vehicle-carrying ships were docked at the Hambantota port. We have now decided to dock all vehicle-carrying ships at the Colombo harbour. The Colombo harbour could benefit from those profits.
Meanwhile, President Maithripala Sirisena expressed his views on the much-discussed Hambantota port agreement.
We propose that the conditions in the agreement should function while abiding by Sri Lanka's laws and its constitution. And that condition was included in the agreement. I clearly said that our lands should not be given to any other foreign country or organisation unless that is being done on lease. We also proposed that amendments to the agreement must be permitted if the situation calls for it, and we included that condition in the agreement. I also said this agreement must be presented to the Parliament for transparency. We will not give the ownership of lands belonging to the Hambantota port to any foreign nation or organisation on freehold. I say that the East Container Terminal will not be given to anybody.
And former President Mahinda Rajapaksa says it is shocking that the government did not make public any technical or financial evaluation reports when it entered into agreement with the Chinese company over the Hambantota Port Development Project. Issuing a communique, the former president added that there was never an issue with payments of the Hambantota Port, as it was paid out of profits of the Ports Authority.
Issuing the communique, former President Mahinda Rajapaksa says, quote, with its privatisation, however, the loan taken to build the Hambantota port will be transferred from the Ports Authority to the Treasury to be paid by the taxpayer, unquote. The former president added that the total amount which has to be paid for the Hambantota port is $1,266 million in capital plus $495 as interest, which sums up the total to $1,761 million by 2036. His statement went on to say the criteria followed by the government when choosing the winning bid was not disclosed to the public, while there was clear evidence that the other bid was much more favourable. Furthermore, he said the government's attempts to justify the privatisation of the Hambantota port by comparing it to the outright sale of land for the Shangri-La Hotel is incomparable, since the hotel is a non-strategic asset, but the Hambantota port is strategically important. He alleges the sale of Hambantota port by the government is just the beginning, and the Matala Airport, Colombo Katunayake Highway, Southern Highway, Water Board and Electricity Board are due to be privatised. Saying his government reacquired several important assets that had been privatised, the former president said, at the current rate, Sri Lanka will not have any national assets left by the time the government's tenure comes to an end.
Meanwhile, Minister of Ports and Shipping Mahinda Samarasinghe revealed that the President has proposed a week's period for ministers to analyse the signed Hambantota Port Agreement. He made these comments at a media briefing held at the Sri Lanka Freedom Party headquarters today.
The President had proposed a week's period for ministers to analyse the signed agreement, and therefore it will be taken up for discussion on next Tuesday. It's after that I am to present the signed agreement to the Parliament. The loss so far is 44 billion rupees. It hadn't incurred any profits all these years. Every year, the Ports Authority had to allocate 9,100 million rupees out of its profits for this. We will establish 2 companies in this regard. Chairman of the Ports Authority is assigned as the chairman of the HIPS company as well. I will appoint 4 members to the Director Board. Since we have a 15% share from the HIPG company, I will name 1 member from there to the Director Board as well. So no one can say that we don't have the majority here. Treasury will receive 1 billion from this, and the Ports Authority will be free from debt.
බිලියනයක් කිට්ටු වෙන්න මුදලක් භාණ්ඩාගාරයට එනවා. Schedule 1, Part 1, page 19, definition of affiliate has been amended to clarify that it will at all times be under the control of the same group. Second amendment is clause 39.3, page 63 on termination. It has been clarified that upon termination, the proceedings will be followed, termination compensation will be paid, and upon termination of the concession agreement, there will be a transfer of the port's property and the common use facilities to the port's authority. Then the third one is clause 42.2, page 69. It has been clarified that in case of minor claims, the dispute will be finally settled in accordance with the small claims procedures established under the applicable laws in Sri Lanka, including the tribunal court as it may legally require.
Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe says that it is the government's aim to pay off the national debt within 8 years. He made this remark at the opening ceremony of the Prince of Wales swimming pool in Moratuwa today.
We need to
end the country's national debt within our generation. It is because of the burden of debt that taxes are increased. When taxes continue to increase, it will affect the monthly income of the people, making it insufficient for day-to-day expenses. A good parent does not allow their debt to be passed on to their children. By 2025, we aim to settle all our debts without passing it to anyone.
The Ceylon Petroleum Union collective states that no trade union action will be launched following today's discussion with President Maithripala Sirisena. They added that the President had granted a period of 1 week for the Cabinet of Ministers to forward proposals on any further amendments to the Hambantota Port Agreement.
The Petroleum Trade Union Collective launched an island-wide strike recently based on 3 key demands. Among their demands are the transfer of the oil tank farm in Trincomalee to the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation and the modernization and resumption of the Sapugaskanda oil refinery, as well as the transfer of the fuel facility unit at the Hambantota oil tank complex to the CPC. Later, the strike was suspended following discussions with President Maithripala Sirisena, with the CPUC being granted another discussion today with the President. After today's discussion with the head of state and ministers Duminta Desanayake, Arjuna Ranatunga and Mahinda Amaravira, members of the Petroleum Trade Union Collective told media that no trade union action will be taken as the discussion was successful.
The President promised the agreement will be open to future amendments. It has been tabled in the Cabinet under this condition. 1 week has been granted for further discussions on the agreement since they were not given a chance to express their views in Parliament. Accordingly, the amendments of the ministers are due to be presented. We must say that we got a positive response for our request.
Meanwhile, the 16 employees of the CPC with warrants issued against them for failing to appear in court yesterday over the recent interruption in fuel distribution services appeared before court today. They were released on a surety of 100,000 rupees by the Colombo Additional Magistrate Ranga Desanayake today. Responding to speculations of an upcoming strike, the Managing Director of the Ceylon Petroleum Storage Terminals Limited, Sanjeeva Vijayaratna, said that public should not be unduly concerned.
There has been a rumor that there is another industrial action planned by the petroleum unions, but I would like to reiterate the fact that there is no such activity planned, and we have ample storage of petroleum products in Muthurajan and Kolonnawa storage terminals, and around the island there are 11 provincial depots, and there's no need for anybody to be unduly concerned about the situation.
State Minister of Finance Iran Wickremaratne says the country requires a scientific system of governance that eliminates negative attitudinal approaches to the way legislators fulfill their duties. He was speaking at the launch of a book titled A Clerk's Reminiscence, which was held at the Sri Lanka Foundation Institute in Colombo.
The book, authored by former Secretary-General of Parliament Nihal Seneviratne, is a recollection of the author's 3 decades of experience in parliamentary duties. The launch was held under the patronage of Parliamentary Speaker Karu Jayasuriya, while State Minister of Finance Iran Wickremaratne was a guest of honour.
Today, we are in the process of making a new constitution. We all want to be a part of the executive. Everybody wants to be some kind of a minister. The MPs do not primarily see themselves as legislators. I hope that some of this could be corrected by restricting cabinet and maintaining the separation of powers and having a scientific government.
Addressing the gathering, the former Secretary General of Parliament urged Speaker Karu Jayasuriya to take a firm hand in upholding the dignity of Parliament.
Leaders of parties have an inherent duty not to choose nominees who have bad records, but who really have a commitment to do something. In our own lifetime, I have seen how standards have fallen. I want to remind Mr. Speaker, sir, there's a standing order which allows you to send a member out for the remainder of the day's sitting. Use that, sir, every now and then. That is one way in which we can keep Parliament the way it was 50 years ago.
It is a consolation to us that the International Parliament Union have rated the Sri Lankan Assembly as a model parliament. We now have links to many parliaments in the world and adopting a policy called parliamentary diplomacy. Last parliament we started very successfully. There's a lot of people who refer to the unparliamentary behavior of just a handful of few parliamentarians. I only say that when I see this, I cry from my heart.
Welcome back. Expenditure in export sector saw an increase of 7.8% at $841 million for the month of May, a $60 million increase compared to last year. The monthly review of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, however, indicated a spending of $1,726.8 million in import expenditure. With this, the trade deficit further expanded from $3,415 million to $4,199 within January to May 2016 to 2017.
Continuing the year-on-year increasing trend observed since March 2017, earnings from exports expanded for the third consecutive month in May 2017, with the largest contribution coming from agriculture exports, followed by industrial exports. High income from exports of tea, spices, petroleum products and seafood led to a 4.3% growth in cumulative earnings to $4,410 million during the first 5 months of 2017. The leading market for merchandise exports for Sri Lanka during the period from January to May were the USA, the UK, India, Germany and Italy, accounting for about 51% of total exports. Meanwhile, the increased import expenditure, which stood at $1,700 million, were reflected in an increased demand of consumer goods, which increased by 17.5%, mainly due to imports in food and beverages, particularly rice, due to measures taken by the government to meet the shortage in the domestic supply. Furthermore, investment goods increased by 4.5% owing to an increased demand in transport equipment. The statement adds that workers' remittances declined by 5.8% to $2,797 million during the first 5 months of 2017, in comparison to the corresponding period of 2016 due to the Middle East crisis. Sri Lanka's external sector strengthened with significant inflows to the financial account of the balance of payments, which led to an increase in gross official reserves from $5 billion as at end of April 2017 to $6.8 billion as at end of May 2017.
The government announced the reduction of special commodity levy and the cess on wheat grain and wheat flour with effective from today. Meanwhile, the special commodity levy on rice was further reduced to 25 cents per kilo from 5 rupees per kilo. This was decided at the Cost of Living Committee, which convened for its weekly review today.
We have decided to import wheat flour. The special commodity levy for wheat grains has been reduced by 3 rupees from 9 rupees to 6 rupees. The cess of imported wheat flour has been reduced by 10 rupees from 25 rupees to 15 rupees. We are implementing a program to provide essential food for reasonable prices, though there will be a drought in the coming months. We will provide a relief package of 5,000 rupees per 2 months for the people who are affected by the drought. We have decided on the prices of rice today, and we hope to import 100,000 kilos of rice per month. The customers would be able to buy a kilo of nadu for 75 rupees in the future.
Meanwhile, the Essential Commodities Importers Association said that they have sufficient rice stocks for the market without a shortage.
In our stocks, we have Vietnam white rice for 60 rupees, red rice for 72 and punni rice for 75 rupees to 76 rupees, and we can provide those without scarcity. We have ordered 100,000 kilograms of nadu, which we would be able to import by next week.
Sri Lanka reached a motor vehicle population of 6.8 million in 2016, up 8% from the 6.3 million registered in 2015. Despite the increase in vehicle population, import expenditure dropped sharply from the record high of 2015.
According to the latest annual report on Sri Lanka's vehicle market compiled by the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce, expenditure on motor vehicle imports in 2016 declined by 32% to 194 billion rupees from 2015's 288 billion rupees. The report added that with this significant decline of motor vehicle imports, new vehicle registrations declined by 26% compared to 2015. Sri Lanka's motor vehicle population is dominated by motorcycles at 54%, followed by three-wheelers at 16% and motor cars at 11%. Speaking to Derana, President of the Vehicle Importers Association of Sri Lanka, Sampath Merenchige said that vehicle importers have suffered losses.
Them leasing LTV, there's a rule, only the motor cars can get the motor car dual purpose line and everything. That kind of vehicles can get the 50% of the valuation. Then people can't afford that. That's the main thing. The government should try to reduce the interest rate, bank interest rate. Very reasonable interest rate only can do the business. Government should promise to them not to vary the duties day by day. And another thing was the LTV rule. I think that's not a very, very bad thing. Government should remove that. I think much better.
On to the Colombo equities. The Colombo Bourse closed in negative territory today, with the SPI closing at 6,060 or rather 6,604.71, while the S&P SL 20 index ending at 3,789.09. Turnover crossed 1.2 billion rupees for today, with foreign sales accounting for about 72.4% of market activity. We have Imeshu Fernando with the daily market update.
Top 5 gainers of the day were SNB Leasing, Amana Takaful, Maland Phipps, Tess Agro and Asia Asset Finance, while the top 5 losers were PC Pharma, Celine Sin, Hikkaduwa Beach Resort, Bearville Resorts and Palm Garden Hotels.
Well, in cricket, Sri Lanka Cricket today announced the squad for the second test against India, due to be played from the 4th to the 7th of August at the Sinhalese Sports Club in Colombo. Sri Lanka Test captain Dinesh Chandimal is set to lead the side after recovering from pneumonia. Sri Lanka Test captain Dinesh Chandimal was ruled out from the first test match after being diagnosed with pneumonia. He was declared fit enough to play the second test against India. Left-hander Lahiru Thirimanne is also included in the squad, while Suranga Lakmal will not be able to play due to injury. Moving on, Los Angeles has officially declared its candidature to host the 2028 Olympic Games, leaving Paris to stage the 2024 edition. In June, the International Olympic Committee voted to name hosts for successive games, with just Paris and Los Angeles bidding. But it was unclear which would host in which year. Both had wanted to host the 2024 event. Paris was competing with Los Angeles for the 2024 Summer Games after several other contenders withdrew. But Los Angeles agreed to accept the consolation prize of the 2028 Games, leaving the way clear for Paris. In news overseas, lawmakers in Pakistan elected Shahid Abbasi as interim Prime Minister, replacing Nawaz Sharif, who was ousted last week over corruption allegations. Abbasi, a close ally of Nawaz Sharif, was elected with 221 votes from the 342-member National Assembly. The ruling party wants the former Petroleum Minister to hold the role temporarily until Nawaz Sharif's brother, Shahbaz Sharif, can take over. Shahbaz Sharif must win a parliamentary by-election to be eligible for premiership in a process that would take 45 days. White House Communication Director Anthony Scaramucci is fired after less than 10 days in the post.
Former Wall Street financier and ousted White House Communications Director Anthony Scaramucci drew intense criticism after he made inappropriate remarks against some of his colleagues during an interview with a reporter. Following Scaramucci's abrupt dismissal, White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders said that he has not been moved to another White House role.
The president certainly felt that Anthony's comments were inappropriate for a person in that position.
And for the latest in the weather for tomorrow, let's cross over to Katharina Chang at the Weather Centre.
A very good evening and welcome to the Weather Centre. Now, temperatures tonight may vary from a mild 22 degrees Celsius to a sweltering 34 degrees Celsius, while we can see a low pressure zone from the northwest all the way to the south part of the island, as well as in the Batticaloa area. Now, this may lead to fairly strong winds of about 40 to 50 kilometers per hour in this region. Meanwhile, thunder showers may also be expected in Trincomalee, Anuradhapura and Batticaloa, while the same can be expected in the lower half of the island, particularly in Colombo, Galle, Matra as well as Kandy. It's now time to take a look at the city-by-city forecast.
And before we go, we'd like to take you on a journey back in time to the 21st of April 1954, the day Queen Elizabeth II visited Sri Lanka on her 28th birthday. During her 10 days the Queen spent in the island, she visited Colombo, Kandy, Anuradhapura and Polonnaruwa. Today, at 91 years of age, Queen Elizabeth II is the longest reigning monarch in British history. We leave you with these visuals. Have a pleasant evening. Good night.
Bringing you the news and information 24 hours a day. This is Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Other Derana, 24/7.